What is going on, everybody? Hope everybody had a great weekend, man. The Super Bowl was phenomenal. That halftime show, absolute masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece. Got hearing a lot of back and forth with that. I don't know what the deal is. I thought it was perfect, perfectly fine, perfect in many ways. But that's not what I'm talking about today. I want to take a second, take a couple of minutes just to talk about the Super Bowl from yesterday. Great game, guys. Both teams came out early, looking a little bit stiff, which is to kind of be expected. I mean, it's the Super Bowl. A lot of these guys are really young, first time being in a game like this. So both teams, like I said, came out a little stiff. Going into halftime, it was a pretty back and forth ball game, nothing too crazy. But it really started to kind of open up in the second half. It really started to kind of open up in the second half. San Francisco 49ers came out like a ball of fire. They were hitting on every cylinder. Jimmy Garoppolo was playing great. The run game was phenomenal. Patrick Mahomes was kind of sputtering there for a second, making throws that you don't normally see him miss, and he was missing them, guys. So it was a situation where I'm thinking, watching the game, that maybe it's a situation where Patrick Mahomes isn't really ready for this type of game. Some of the throws, like I said, he was making were throws that you typically wouldn't see him miss in the regular season, and he was missing them wide open, guys, throwing it short, things like that. So just kind of off target. He had a couple of interceptions in the third quarter, or in the second half rather, that were just pretty bad. Some missed throws that kind of bounced off Tyreek Hill, ended up deflecting into one of the guys from the secondary for the 49ers. But ultimately, guys, they were able to rally back. It was a great game, guys. I listened to a lot of talk radio, and a lot of the questions that were up in the air were, did the 49ers lose this game more than the Kansas City Chiefs won it? What lost it for the San Francisco 49ers? Was it the effectiveness of the plays? Was it Jimmy Garoppolo? Was it Kyle Shanahan in the play calling? And in my opinion, it was a little bit of everything. Kyle Shanahan now has his name attached to two of the biggest comebacks in Super Bowl history. I told a lot of people leading up to the game, you remember the last time that Kyle Shanahan was in a Super Bowl? He blew a big lead when he was with the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of questionable play calling at the end of that game when they lost to the New England Patriots, and a big, big comeback, guys, by the New England Patriots. That was just a few years ago. Surely you remember that. But a lot of questionable calling at the end of that game also. They could have taken a field goal, run the ball late in the game, and secured a field goal that would ultimately have secured them a Super Bowl championship. So I told a lot of people that kind of leading up into this game to be on the lookout for Kyle Shanahan and some of his play calling, especially late in the ball game. The Kansas City Chiefs showed all playoffs that they could come from behind, guys. I mean, they overcame a 24-point deficit by halftime against the Houston Texans to end up coming around and blowing them out. They did the same thing with the Tennessee Titans, so I really didn't think that this was going to be any different. Sitting there watching the game with my family, my grandpa's rooting hardcore for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm telling them that they're definitely not out of the game. He was kind of getting frustrated, and I'm telling them they're not out of this game. Patrick Mahomes has done this every game in the playoffs. This is almost what it looks like that they're actually comfortable. So Kyle Shanahan really didn't do the San Francisco 49ers any favors. Late in the second half, there's a situation where they get the ball back. I believe they're coming to try and answer off of a Kansas City Chiefs touchdown. First down, they run the ball 1st and 5, making it second, so 5 yards, making it 2nd and 5. I'm thinking, well, they're going to come out and pound the rock. They're going to pound the rock all the way down the field. They come out and actually pass that drive. They pass on 2nd down, ultimately leading them to have to pass on 3rd down and end up having to punt the ball away on 4th down. So just some questionable play calling late that I didn't personally agree with. Now, of course, I'm here sitting on my couch, not making any money, talking about sports. He is making millions calling plays. So the guy's a whole lot more football-minded than I am, and he's done great all season long. He was one of my favorite coaches all season long, especially throughout the playoffs and the pure dominance that they showed throughout the playoffs going against the Packers and the Vikings. My thing is with Kyle Shanahan is in the big game, which why I told a lot of people to be on the lookout for some of the play calling for Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers was because he's done it once. Surely he can do it again. And it doesn't all boil down to Kyle Shanahan and some of the play calling that he had for the 49ers in the second half. Jimmy Garoppolo missed some passes. The defense was playing at an all right level, getting pressure in his face, batting balls down, things like that. There was a couple of throws late that Jimmy Garoppolo should have and could have made. You pay your guy X amount of dollars, X amount of millions of dollars to lead you to this point, and then you also want him to make the play. My thing with Jimmy Garoppolo is I think he's a fine quarterback. I think he's good enough to lead the 49ers to another Super Bowl. He's just not that elite quarterback. And he's going to have that on him until he can prove to us otherwise. Throughout the playoffs, there was I believe against the Green Bay Packers, he only had to throw the ball 8 times, less than 10 times, something along those lines there. So he really wasn't held accountable for the type of play that he was going to need in order to, make a comeback in that game or whatever the case may be. So we just hadn't seen a good playoff performance from Jimmy Garoppolo to make me feel that Jimmy Garoppolo was going to come in, and if the ball ultimately ended up having to be in his hands late in the ball game, that he was going to be able to make these plays. And that answered my question. He missed several throws. He got passes batted down, things like that. The play calling wasn't in their favor either. So situation where why they came away from the run will be beyond me. Raheem Mostert only had 12 carries, 58 yards, but he's averaging almost 5 yards a carry. He did have a touchdown. Deebo Samuel on these end arounds and the option plays, some of the different type of moving Deebo Samuel did on the field was worked out in their favor tremendously. I mean, he was doing a really great job running the football. So why they got away for some of that play calling late in the ball game ultimately boils down to the coaches, but also the effectiveness of some of these plays weren't ran, for against the Emmanuel Sanders play where Jimmy Garoppolo overthrows him by 5 or 6 yards. Kyle Shanahan dials up the right play. Jimmy Garoppolo just misses him. So like I said, it goes hand in hand as far as how the 49ers missed this, how they ultimately lost this game. In my opinion, like I said, effectiveness, and then ultimately some of the play calling was pretty bad, but Jimmy Garoppolo was pretty bad also late in the second half. So ultimately, I think it boils down to effectiveness and some of the play calling for the 49ers that ended up costing them this game. And like I said, Kyle Shanahan now has his name tied to two of the some of the biggest comebacks in Super Bowl history. So Andy Reid was actually able to overcome that. He typically, he came into the game kind of with that attached to his name. He's a coach that can make it to the Super Bowl but can't win you one. Now, I'm super happy for Andy Reid on winning a Super Bowl, a coach that I respect a lot, a coach that I think is absolutely phenomenal. So super happy for them. Super happy for Patrick Mahomes and the performance that he had. 26 of 42, 286 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, one of the biggest things with me was the 2 interceptions late in the game. 2 interceptions, really bad interceptions. Like I said, some misthrown footballs, things like that were just bad interceptions. And you're like, man, this is putting the nail in the coffin. You think that at this point the 49ers are surely going to put this game away, and they just wouldn't put the game away. Now you come out and you're on 3rd and 15. Patrick Mahomes drops back, really unorthodox drop back, which is crazy. And I don't want to get into all that, but finds Tyreek Hill up the field for 44 yards. Now, that brings me to another thing about the San Francisco 49ers. You come into this game, and you're talking about your defense and how good your defense is and this, that, and the other. And don't get me wrong, they are. But your team has to be able to get off the field on the 3rd and 15. Patrick Mahomes is magical. It just seems like there was something about this kid. Even in their first playoff game, you just felt it. You knew something was different. The throws he's able to make, the way he's able to keep his team in the ball games. So I'm watching this play unfold, 44 yards up the field, and at that point I'm thinking they're going to pull this game off. They're going to make the comeback. They're going to come all the way back, and they're going to pull this thing off. So surely enough, they find Travis Kelce in the back. For a touchdown, late in the ball game. Now it's a 1-possession game. it's anybody's ball game at this point here. So ultimately, a lot of credit to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in the comeback all the way here. I mean, they came back in every game. I believe it's the most comebacks by any NFL player in the playoffs, the youngest player. So hit a lot of accolades there. But Damian Williams was another guy who really flew under the radar, and I really thought that Damian Williams was going to be the guy to solidify the Super Bowl MVP. 17 carries, 104 yards, averaging over 6 yards a carry. He had a touchdown, the one late 38-yard touchdown run to ultimately ice the game. Just all the way around for this team. Tyreek Hill, 9 receptions, 105 yards. Just all the way around for this team. The defense played phenomenal. Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu had an incredible game also. So all the way around, guys, they were able to stick into this ball game, and that's really all they needed. Patrick Mahomes, again, phenomenal, and the guy I think is going to deserve all the money. And that's another question that's kind of being proposed is what's going to happen in the future now with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs with Andy Reid. There was talks earlier today that Patrick Mahomes was going to be seeking a $40 million contract, which I think is well-deserved. But I think if you've got that core of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes leading your team for the next 10 to 15 years, I think that's great. I think that's going to be awesome. I think that's going to be exactly what keeps this team to be the next dynasty. Tyreek Hill is another young guy. Travis Kelce is another younger guy. He's a little bit older, but not too bad. But they've got a core there that is going to be hard to break apart. First of all. And they're going to be tough to beat for a really long time. Their defense is just good enough, it seemed like. So I'm looking forward to seeing what both of these teams have in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if in the near future, maybe not next year, but within the next couple of years, Kyle Shanahan is a great coach. I'm rooting for him. I'm not knocking him at all. I really like him as a coach. I want to see him ultimately get a Super Bowl win. Unfortunately, it wasn't this time, and I hope that he can pull that stigma that it's attached to his name about him being him being a head coach that just chokes it away in the playoffs. Tough to overcome, guys. Ultimately, super happy for Andy Reid, super happy for my boy Patrick Mahomes. But guys, unfortunately, that wraps up the football season, man. That wraps up the football season. I'm a big baseball guy too, so I'm pretty excited about that. But everybody knows, man, football's my thing. Football season is my favorite time of the year. So it's gonna be a long 7 months. I do want to let you guys know I still will be pumping out content. I do want to start, get unfolding with a podcast. I know some of my videos are longer. Maybe it's a little bit more easy to take in if it was just in an audio form. So I do want to get the podcast going. I really appreciate you guys' support, especially with the giveaway that I had this past weekend. About 20 of you guys ended up subscribing. So I'm super thankful for all you guys. I hope you guys continue to enjoy the content. I hope you guys continue to engage. I do want to start coming out with more draft information leading up to the draft. I think that's going to be something next that I dive into. I'm going to start breaking down a lot of film from the guys that are entering the draft. Just trying to keep myself busy, guys, working in the right direction. Again, thank you guys for y'all's support. This is my first full year talking about this stuff, so just kind of getting started. I do feel a whole lot better. I feel like my content's gotten better, so that's a plus. Hopefully just going to get better the more content that I pop out and the longer that I'm doing this. So again, guys, thank y'all so much for y'all support. Have a great week. Peace.